We check in with the only sportscaster, as I said, who currently does play-by-play for the NFL, NBA, MLB, and the NHL. Truly a legend, Kenny Albert with us. How are you today, Kenny?
I'm great, guys. How are you?
We're fine. What do you think? We go back and forth here because Kyle Draper, bless him, he's from Philly and he's excited about the Eagles. He's not a big 49er fan, and we play 49er games on our station. What's your sense of where the 49ers are right now, Kenny?
Well, one of my former broadcast partners, John Lynch, runs the team, so of course I have to give John a shout-out. But, it's right around the corner, right? We're getting set for training camps, and should be an exciting season. We have our Fox seminar coming up in a couple of weeks, and, probably a little too early to start dissecting the teams around the league, but, it was a terrific division last year, and, you have a new quarterback in Seattle, and, we'll see what's going on with the Arizona Cardinals, the Rams, and the 49ers. Always fun to work those games. So we'll give it a couple of weeks and take a look at the training camp rosters and see how things pan out and go from there.
Fair enough. Doesn't really want to commit right now.
No, exactly. You got to see, look what the final.
A little too early.
Exactly.
I was on the hockey playoff trail for 2 months. I was on vacation last week. So, we'll get the mind into football over these next couple of weeks.
Well, I will ask you this, Kenny, and this is sort of an evergreen conversation we could talk throughout the year. We know how great Burrow is, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Seems like every year these guys are right up there in the top 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks in the league, but they haven't won anything yet. Do you believe this is the year one of them breaks through, and do one of them have to break through at some point this year?
You would think so. When you look at some of those quarterbacks who maybe aren't, so young anymore, they're in the 5-6 year range, and Josh Allen in Buffalo, when will they take the next step? They've had a couple of cracks at it to this point. The Bengals have missed the playoffs for a couple of years. So I think the position overall, the talent level is probably as high as it ever is. So these guys are a lot of fun to watch. Lamar Jackson's gone to the championship game, hasn't taken that next step. Surrounded by a great defense. Obviously, that's been the mantra in Baltimore for about 25 years now. So, again, only one team can get there at the end and win the championship, and the other 31 go home unhappy. So the Eagles got it done last year, and we'll see which one of those quarterbacks you mentioned perhaps takes the next step this season.
It's a great Kenny Albert joining us here in Sactown Sports. This is part of our summer sermon. We're getting off the beaten path a little bit to check in with our guests. You mentioned something that to you may be very pedestrian, Kenny. I don't know, but could you explain to those of us, now Kyle's done play-by-play, so he may know what all this is about, but you mentioned the Fox seminar coming up. What kind of things do they cover at that as you guys get ready to broadcast the season?
Well, I think the thing that stands out to me is just how much fun it is being around all of the different the play-by-play broadcasters, the color analysts, the sideline reporters, the producers, the directors, some of the other production folks, because it's really the only time every year that you see everybody. Mm-hmm. Once the season starts, we're all going in our own different directions, covering various games. And I think all the way back to my early years, and there were a number of us who were hired at a very young age. We were in the right place at the right time when Rupert Murdoch decided to make a crazy bid for the NFC package prior to the 94 season. CBS had the rights for about 38 years. And all of a sudden there was a new fledgling network in town, and Fox didn't even have a sports department. And they brought a lot of us out for auditions, and they hired 4 young play-by-play announcers. I was one of them, along with Joe Buck, Kevin Harlan, and Tom Brenneman. So, when I think back to those early years, the other 2 play-by-play broadcasters on the top 2 teams were legends, Pat Summerall and Dick Stockton. And I remember sitting around the early seminars, 1994, 96, 95, 96, 97, and just trying to soak it all in. Us young guys didn't want to say much back then. We were all ears and listening in and taking advice. And John Madden was there, obviously, and all of the youngsters would kind of gather around, and he was like the old sage, and we would listen to the stories and just learn so much during those days. And here we are 31 years later, and it's still exciting to get together. And, we have a new younger group of color analysts at Fox. Obviously Tom Brady, Greg Olson, Jonathan Vilma, Mark Sanchez, my longtime partner, Darryl Moose Johnston, who still does an unbelievable job, Mark Schlereth. So to sit around and listen to their perspective on the league, and they'll tell stories about, their playing days, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a couple of days out in California. There are some group bonding type of activities as well, team bonding. So looking forward to that, and getting started with the regular season not that long thereafter.
Kenny Albert joining us. Kenny, I've been able to call basketball, football. I haven't done baseball nor hockey. Could you just speak? And I'll be honest, I'm afraid of hockey. Can you take me behind the scenes, man? Tell me how you do it. How are you spotting the puck and the players? And do you have a spotter out there? Just take me behind the scenes with that.
That's your favorite, isn't it, Kenny?
Kyle, it's a great question. You do not have a spotter. The sport is too fast. You couldn't look down. In football, you have a spotter who points to, guys who are on the field coming on and off prior to the play, and then the player that makes the tackle or recovers the fumble. But the nature of hockey, it's too fast. You can't take your eyes off the ice. So you're not using a spotter. I get asked the question all the time, which is the hardest sport to do play-by-play and which is the easiest? And I've been fortunate to be involved in all four, football and hockey, to the largest extent, some basketball, some baseball, and have worked some other sports as well. To me, hockey is the easiest. It's like riding a bike.
Really?
You're just calling the game. It's a continuous call, especially on radio, on TV. It's a little different because you can pull back and leave more time for the color analyst to come in. But to me, it's the easiest. Basketball, similar. Hockey is 60 minutes. The puck's in action for 60 minutes. Basketball, it's 48 minutes. There are probably more stoppages in basketball, whistles, fouls, ball going out of bounds, etc. Football is the most rhythmic. It's one play, and then it's 20 or 25 seconds. So as the play-by-play announcer, you're setting up the next play. You call the play, you wrap it up quickly, and then you get out of the way to let the color analyst come in. Then it's another play in 20, 25 seconds, another play, 20 or 25 seconds. I've always said baseball, to me, is the most challenging. When I was doing baseball, and I still do about 8 to 10 games a year, but back in the day when I would work 10 to 15, sometimes 20, I still wasn't around it every day like the team broadcasters, and you really have a lot of downtime. A typical baseball game, the ball's only in action for 8 to 12 minutes. So there's a lot of downtime where you're relying on the color analyst. Now it's changed over the last few years with the pitch clock. It does go a lot faster, and there's not as much downtime as there used to be. But as far as those four sports, to me at least personally, hockey is the easiest. I know people say, how can that be the case with the speed of the sport and the line changes, the players change on the fly, they don't have to wait for a whistle, the European names, but those you just get used to. You study the names, and it's repetitive. As you say them multiple times, you remember the names. So I know it's probably not the answer you expected, Kyle.
Right? No.
To me, it's the easiest. Not that the other ones are hard after doing it for so many years, but like I said, it's like riding a bike. Now the preparation, I have the same type checklist for every sport that I go through before every game, and it includes a lot of reading. During the when it's football season, hockey season, I'm probably reading 5 or 6 hours a day, just keeping up with the storylines from each city. I'll go back and read a week's worth of articles prior to every game, no matter what the sport. It's watching prior games. It's going to practices and talking to players and coaches and press conferences, etc. For a football game, I've never really tallied it up, but it's probably about 20, 30, maybe even 40 hours a week that you put in for that one game. Now that's a combination of the work you do on your own from Monday to Thursday.
Yeah.
But then Friday we often go to the team practice, the home team, and then we'll get the opportunity to sit down with 3 or 4 players and coaches. We used to do the same thing with the visiting team on Saturday when they arrived in the city. Now, a lot of times with the visiting team, we'll do that on Zoom. Then we have our own production meeting Saturday night. So if you add all that up, it's probably 20, 30, 40 hours preparing charts, going through statistics. Now, for a hockey or basketball game, it's probably, I would say 3, 4, 5 hours for a particular game.
Yeah.
Between the reading and the going through the notes and the stats and all that. the teams are playing games all the time, so you're following what's going on. So it's not nearly as much as far as the hours of preparation. But I always tell people and speak to young broadcasters all the time, there's a lot of work and travel that go into it, but it's fun. It's fun work. And we're not sitting behind a desk doing something we hate. We're watching sports or reading about sports. So very fortunate to be involved in the various sports that I've been involved with, and look forward to the upcoming seasons.
Mm-hmm. Kenny Albert, nice enough to join us. So you just mentioned that you were recently on vacation. I'm just curious, if I may, when Kenny Albert's on vacation, do you get away from sports, or do you just watch them more as a fan and enjoy them in a sense more because you're not working, you're just watching them?
You know what? We actually went overseas. We went to Italy with my wife and two daughters who are 25 and 22. And there wasn't any sports watching, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
It's a quieter time now.
Sure.
with only baseball going on, as far as the four majors. But, still kept up with it, was reading and had the iPad out on the plane at the hotel. But there wasn't much sports viewing. We actually did manage to get away for 5 or 6 days, believe it or not.
Oh, I like that. Nice work, Kenny. Not on social media or anything like that.
By the way, I should mention, speaking of my wife, we spent our first anniversary. This is back in 1997 in Sacramento.
Really?
Wow.
I was working a WNBA game for MSG Network, the New York Liberty and the Sacramento Monarchs. So we had dinner in Sacramento on our first anniversary. So a big milestone many years ago.
And Kenny, were you out here this past season? Or the last couple of seasons?
Let's see. It was some of the games run together. It was.
I feel like it was maybe 2 years ago.
2 seasons ago.
Sacramento's changed a lot since '97 downtown.
I think it was 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, the area has changed a lot. Let me ask you this, though. You've called so many great games and all the four major sports. Is there one call where you look back and say, that was it, I nailed that? What's your most memorable?
So it's hard to narrow down one. There are several. And if I can give a plug for my book that I wrote a couple of years ago, I list a bunch of them in there, A Mike for All Seasons. I had one pretty recently this year when Alex Ovechkin broke the NHL all-time goal-scoring record. Our TNT crew was fortunate enough to be on that game back in April, so that's certainly up there. It's funny, I haven't done as much baseball as the other sports, but I did the Jose Bautista home run and bat flip in the playoffs in 2015. So that's one that stands out. And another one you guys would remember, the crazy Patriots-Vegas Raiders ending.
Oh, yeah.
3-4 years ago with the laterals. It was a tie game.
The Sin City
and
Miracle.
The Patriots tried to lateral a couple of times, and Chandler Jones intercepted it and ran it back for a game-winning touchdown. So maybe not the answers you were expecting. You might have been expecting a championship game, a playoff game, but the Ovechkin goal, just because it was the record breaker, the Bautista home run and bat flip, and the Patriots Raiders lateral play. Those are certainly three that stand out. If you go way back in the Fox NFL days, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, a couple you might remember were Terrell Owens with the 49ers in Dallas when he scored a touchdown and then ran out and celebrated on the Cowboys star, which the Cowboys did not necessarily enjoy seeing. So I worked that game. There was a pretty memorable Michael Vick 43, 45-yard zigzag game-winning touchdown run in overtime his rookie year with the Falcons in Minnesota. So I was on that one. I had a crazy game a couple of years ago, Green Bay, Cincinnati. The kickers combined to miss 5 field goals, I think, in the fourth quarter in overtime. So, there are certain moments like that that stand out. I had the only punter-kicker touchdown pass in NFL history. Ooh. It was a Miami Dolphins game a couple of years ago, a fake field goal, where one of the specialists threw the touchdown pass to the other. I can't remember which one it was, but it was the punter and the kicker. So, so many memories, Olympic hockey, men's and women's, some gold medal games. Did have the opportunity to call the international feed of one Super Bowl 46. That telecast wasn't on in the U.S., but it was on in many other countries around the world. So those are some of the ones that stand out.
Kenny Albert with us, and you seem like the living, breathing embodiment of the sentiment that you should do what you love. And to that point, I'm just wondering how there's some stories out there on Wikipedia. I don't know how much we can believe. How young were you when you first started like doing stats for your dad and stuff like that, Kenny?
Pretty young. I filled in. I filled in doing stats for him on the third period of a hockey game when I was 7. So that was technically the first time. It was in Washington D.C. and the guy doing stats had a really early flight the next day, so he left the game early. So jotted down a couple of the goals and assists on that one.
Wow.
But started doing it on a regular basis when I was around 15 or 16, and it was such a great learning experience because I would be right there next to the broadcasters. I would get to listen in to what they were talking about during the course of the game. I would also hear some of the chatter with the producers and the engineers. So it was, obviously a great head start, great learning experience. When I was 15, 16, I actually worked the stats with him. I had already started my professional broadcasting career. I was doing minor league hockey in Baltimore, but I came out of stat retirement, and I worked the Dream Team games in Barcelona in 1992. So that was the last time I worked as a statistician, was in a front row seat watching the Dream Team play. So that was certainly a big highlight as well.
How much of the play-by-play announcer you are today do you trace back to just learning from your dad, being around him during those years?
Oh, definitely. That was a huge part of it, just by kind of living and breathing sports and growing up with somebody who was doing play-by-play in a number of sports at the time at a high level. But not only him, we living in New York, growing up on Long Island at the time, we didn't have cable TV. There weren't as many games on over the air at the time. So I was a big radio listener. I would listen to all sports on radio, and we had the Yankees, the Mets, the Giants, Jets, Knicks, Rangers, Nets, Devils, Islanders, 9 pro teams. So I was always listening to the radio and all the great broadcasters that were in this area. I would watch the national games as well. So, sure. I mean, so much of what I learned was from him while I was growing up, and his 2 brothers, Steve and Al, who were also longtime broadcasters, but many others as well. I just tried to soak in as much as I could.
Kenny Albert joining us here on Sactown Sports. You said you've been doing this nationally since the 90s, and we know audiences have changed a lot since then, and audiences now, sports fans are more well-informed than ever before. How, in your view, have fans changed while you've been doing this, and have you in any way had to adjust the way you present games because of that?
I don't think there's been much of an adjustment as far as the way we do games. I think the one thing we all keep in mind is that, with the advent of satellite and social media, whatever you say could wind up anywhere.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So, you always have to be aware, not that you didn't want to make the best call possible prior to that, but now it's kind of preserved for a lifetime. So, that's one aspect of it. But the big thing for me is the technology and the amount of information that's available. When I started doing hockey back in the early 90s at the minor league level, and then in the NHL and NFL starting in 1994, the internet barely existed then. So I was reading newspapers, weekly publications, the sporting news, the hockey news. That's how you got a lot of your information. The first year at Fox, they would send us VHS tapes of each team's previous game. You wouldn't get them until Wednesday. Now you can watch any game, anytime, anywhere, or tape it, or access it later on. And they would fax us articles on an old fax machine. That's how we would be able to read the various articles about the teams. So just the information that's available is, you can drive yourself crazy. You can be reading something 24/7. You can almost do too much homework. But again, with games available on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer, it wasn't that easy back then. I remember when people had the first satellite dishes in the mid 1990s. I couldn't believe it that people could actually watch games from other cities. And now every league has its own package, and you can watch anything, like I said, at any time. I think one of the big ways it's changed is, I think the younger generation doesn't necessarily sit down and watch an entire game.
Right.
They're watching the Red Zone channel, which I've never seen, by the way, because I'm always at a game on Sunday. I've heard it's great, but I haven't actually witnessed it. But people are watching the Red Zone channel. They're flipping around. They're watching the highlights. They're watching highlights on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. So I think that's a big difference from when I was growing up, and I would actually sit there and watch an entire game, no matter what sport. I don't think this generation is really doing much of that these days.
Well, listen, we appreciate your time very much. Before we let you go, I know you said you think hockey's the easiest. Is hockey also, if you had a favorite, and I know it's probably like picking your favorite child, is hockey your favorite sport to do?
That's the line I always use. It's like picking your favorite child if you have four of them. I love them all. I always did. When I was growing up, hockey was a little bit ahead of the others. I played hockey as a kid. Wasn't very good, but always enjoyed playing. Was on a club team in both high school and college. And that was my goal, hockey on the radio. So hockey's always been a passion, but really love all of them. I mean, I've been working NFL games for 31 years now, and there's nothing like 1 o'clock on a Sunday when they kick off. And that millions of people are watching. And I really enjoy whenever I have the opportunity to work baseball and basketball games as well. So fortunate to be involved in multiple sports, and I've even worked some Olympic sports, water polo, track and field, volleyball, believe it or not. I've done some boxing. So the one sport that I did once that I really felt like I had no idea what I was watching or doing was college wrestling. This was about 30 years ago, and I studied, and I spoke to an Olympic wrestler on the phone, Jeff Blatnick, and he gave me some great insight, and I just didn't get it. I was fortunate to have a great color commentator who had been a wrestler, and I would just set it up. I was like the traffic cop. I would give the names, the records, the hometowns, and then I would just shut up and get out of the way because I really felt like I had no clue.
Well, you're very generous with your time, as I say. Thanks, Kenny. We appreciate it. Good luck at the Fox seminar. We hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Kyle. Really enjoyed it, and good luck with the upcoming seasons, and enjoy the rest of the summer.
All right,
Kenny.
Thank you.
All right, now.